Hello and welcome to Check 1 2, where we speak to survivors, advocates and supporters of testicular cancer awareness here at the world famous podcast studio Glasgow. Today's guest is David Macpherson, and join us as we delve into quite an emotional tale of family, resilience and Shinty. With David's battle against testicular cancer, we look at the unexpected twist that gave the gift of life and the power of freezing sperm while going through your treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, David Macpherson. And even just like using the language, like I'm like a broken record on this thing because I always talk about it, but you know, folk are scared to call them anything other than testicles, and it's like, no, but that's the whole point.
I know, even the wee man, he calls octopuses testicles, but it still brings a wee snigger to me, like don't like ever correcting them because it's quite cool.
There's certain things with your kids like that they say that don't last for that long, so you want to keep
it that innocence is soon gone.
I mean, there's loads like my laddie used to call peppers peepers. and see when peepers disappeared, you're kind of heartbroken.
That that's that stage gone.
Yeah. But David, thank you so much for coming on Check 1 2.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's great to meet back up with you again. Obviously we done that thing for the Daily Records.
That's right.
I mean, that must be at least 6 years ago now. At least.
Longer.
I think. Least. But probably longer, maybe 8.
I think so. The Check Your Baubles campaign.
Yeah.
That was good fun.
That was good. It was good. I just, as a kick off, just introduce yourself and tell us about your cancer story, I suppose, eh?
Right, my name's David Macpherson. I'm 44 now, and it's 14 years ago that I discovered a lump. And I've probably bored everybody and anybody about my story, but I'll be glad to tell it again. You know, it was what I thought was a hit in the testicles from a Shinty ball. So to me, I didn't think much of it. You know, didn't even go into Dr. Google or anything. I'm just thinking, it's just a hit to the testicles. What I'll do is I'll take a couple of ibuprofen and it'll go away. But it didn't go away.
Yeah.
It was just lingering. It was this dull ache that was there. But because it was a whack to the nuts by a Shinty ball, I'm thinking nothing of it. So maybe about 3 weeks after that happened, I thought I better do something about this. So I went to the doctor, and I was in the waiting room. I was there for ages, and then I walked out. I was
really?
I didn't have the time, or I thought this is an inconvenience to me. You know, I'll come back when it's a little bit quieter. So then it was about another 3 weeks later, and I seen the appointment out, and the doctor looked at my testicle. So I thought, this is a bit strange, you know, but I'll just roll with it. And he was quite cool, quite calm, and he just handed me a wee letter. Said, "Could you go down to the Royal and get an ultrasound?" I was like, no bother. Like, still thinking nothing of it. You know, kind of young guy, healthy, invincible, not even, maybe even naive. You know, thinking there's nothing wrong here. So down to the Royal, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and there was all these doctors looking at my notes, and away I went into the room, and then this young nurse came in, another nurse. I was like, this day's getting stranger and stranger by the second. You know, there's people poking and prodding and everything. And the young guy came after all that, the young doctor, very similar ages to me. He says, "You've got testicular cancer." And I'm like, "What? Pardon?" Like, no, surely not. He says, "We've found a lump, and we'd like you to come back in tomorrow and get it taken out." And I'm like, this is mental.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. Like, 1 minute I'm thinking I'm a young, fit guy, and then next thing, this word cancer, and then testicular cancer, like, these words just bamboozled me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel ill. I didn't feel any shape, form unwell or anything, but as soon as he said those two words, my head was frazzled. So then I had to go to my work and tell them. I was just about to go into shift, and they were great. I feel sorry for the people that I just blurted it out to, because they weren't expecting it, but they were fantastic. And then having to tell your parents, that's, to me, one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, and probably one of the hardest things that they've ever had to hear as well. You know, like, I live in Glasgow now, but mum and dad are in Inverary, so I had to drive up the road, and the whole way up the road I'm like, I've got testicular cancer, you know, saying it out loud to try and make it a little bit more comfortable for them. I don't know how easy that is, but and they seen me walking up the path and they're like, are you all right? Have you had the sack? Like, what are you doing coming up during, you know, middle of the week? I was like, oh, I wish I did. It would probably be easier, but I had to tell them, and we all had a good greet.
Yeah.
But my mum and dad are brilliant. They're pretty matter of fact. Like, right, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
What's the next step as well? I need to go back up to Glasgow tomorrow and get it taken out. So we did. Went back up to Glasgow. And thankfully, I don't know why my mum said it, but she said to the doctor, when David was younger, he had undescending testicles. Has that got anything to do with it? And the doctor said, just give me one more minute. And went away. He must have went and talked to some senior person and said, listen, I can't give you advice, but you can either wait, drop off a sperm sample, or we can do the operation right now. So my head's already gone. But then all of a sudden, thrown in the fertility, and I didn't have a partner at the time, but it was always a dream to start my own family. And my mum and dad were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to have a family one day. I don't know if that's possible, but if I can delay it, let's do it. And I said to the guy, like, if I leave this toxic shite in me, pardon the language, but is it going to make a difference? I said, a couple of days won't make a difference. So I was all geared up for getting it all whipped out, but decided to leave the operation and put in a sample in a few days' time. And it was probably the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
But one of the hardest, and your head's fried. So you're all weekend in your head, you're just thinking, what if, wonder, your head's just going round and round and round in circles. So away we went back up on the Monday. Mum and dad outside the room. Here I am in this wee tiny room. And I remember it yet. There was 3 magazines on the table. And I thought it was quite ironic. It was Nuts. Remember that back in 2000? Matron and another one I can't remember. But I was like, here we go. So I can have a wee laugh and a joke about it just now. But at the time, I was like, oh, God. So put the sample in and away up to the theatre to get the testicle removed.
So was it like sample and then theatre right away?
Yeah,
wow, okay.
That's the way it was.
Right.
So went under and then came to what I thought was seconds later, but it was hours. And took a wee look down. There was this arrow pointing.
Yeah.
I was like, said to the doctor, I was like, that's the wrong one. And the look in their face, but because you know that way you're just so groggy.
Yeah.
I was out of it. But thankfully it was the one that
they got the right one.
They got the right one. Aye. So then after that, it was just rest and recuperation.
Yep.
And then it was 2 bouts of chemo.
Right.
Can't remember the names. It was that long ago, but I was in over the weekend, And it was just when the 2010 World Cup was starting, the vuvuzelas and all that. So for me, being in the hospital at that time, that kept me going. That even though you're stuck with all these machines and everything, it was the first one was, I wouldn't say easy, but it was a breeze compared to the second one.
Yeah.
So then 3 weeks later, I went back for the second bout, and that's when the hair and everything started kind of fall out, and I felt a wee bit more lethargic.
Yeah.
But I was still trying to keep fit throughout. I was still doing a bit of running, and Shinty was my big thing, but I just stopped playing it just to focus on getting healthier and getting back to full fitness.
Yeah. Especially having like a big scar, like
I know.
Imagine taking a hit in a Shinty game.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Aye. Well, I always used to wear a ball guard, but for that night at training, for whatever reason, I didn't.
Right.
And I believe if I'd worn my ball guard that night, I might have been a bit more worried. I might have been a bit more, I better look into this and see what's wrong. I don't know. There wasn't anything like Cahonas out at that time. And I looked online, but there wasn't anything there. But I didn't reach out to anybody. I didn't talk to anybody. I kept it all to myself.
Yeah.
I've got really good pals, like a good support network, but I just didn't talk to anybody. I thought, I'll keep this to myself. I don't want to put any more stress on anybody else. Everybody's got their own issues and problems. I'll deal with this by myself. But now looking back, I think that was not a bright idea to do, because like talking to people about it is so therapeutic. It's like the amount of times we've met up and talking to other people, it's just, you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest takeaway as well, and I think it's when you're looking at all these guys who have been on the podcast, and we kind of spoke about this off camera before, it's like the amount of guys who actually didn't tell anybody or wanted to keep it to themselves, and I understand it. I'm just a little bit more of an exhibitionist. So I was.
Yeah, I wish I could do what you do and the way you handled it, but that's the way I am with everything. I could keep it to myself. But now, as like I said earlier, I bore my friends with it on social media. You're telling people to, whether it's at Halloween or Christmas time, or you're just putting that message out there, check your ghoulies, if anyone is ever feeling like they shouldn't be talking about it, please don't, reach out. The amount of people on my social media that I've had people talk to me like saying, I felt a lump, what should I do, where should I go, what is it, I'm freaking out here. But I've just been there, and I'm just trying to reassure them, let them know that as long as it's early enough, thankfully a lot of it's been cysts or just lumps that haven't come to anything. But I feel like I can be there for people to reach out to and talk to.
Yeah. And do you think, like, having had your cancer, like, that's the thing that's changed that part of you, that you are a little bit more open to talk in that way, or is it?
Definitely talking about testicles, definitely. Maybe not about my feelings or my emotions. I'm still that typical guy, but certainly about cancer and testicular cancer, because something that I wasn't really privy to. I always read about it, and it'll always happen to somebody else. It's never our family. It's never going to happen to us. But all of a sudden, whack! It just hits you, and you're I know, you're right, and it just hits you, and you're like, right, what are we going to do here? Like, it's a lot of things that go through your head that you need to sort out. Your mental health, your your fertility, your job, your financial situation, you know, your friendships, your relationships. There's lots of different variables that you need to think about. It's not just the ball. You know, there's so many other things that go along with it. And that's what I found difficult to begin with. And once I talked to the family about it, once I got the reassurance from Dr. Jeff White, you know, all these professional people, then I was like, right, okay, I'm not really a details person, but I'm more of a doer. And I was like, right, once I knew what was happening, then my head was a lot better after that.
Actually, like once you knew the steps and
right, okay.
And I think Jeff's, you know, is now that he's retired, was great at that. You know, it's like he just outlined it with no sugarcoating. This is what's happening. So you did know, you know, and I think that was helpful.
He was great. I struck up a great relationship with Jeff. I actually did some voluntary work at the Beatson after my treatment, and once again, I wish it was something that was available to me when I was going through it, but it was the effects of fitness throughout treatment. And what Jeff wanted me to do was just talk to these guys and get them maybe getting off the bus a little bit earlier, you know, walking the stairs instead of the lift, you know, maybe walking the dog a wee bit longer. You know, there was a lot of guys who were right up for it. You know, there was people who were maybe doing a 5K or whatever. We did it over 6 weeks. You're not really going to get big results in that time, but it was just nice to be able to talk to people and reassure people that, you know, there is other people out there. You know, fitness is a great tool. And because Jeff was so good to me, it was a wee bit for me giving back to him. And Jeff was a runner as well, so we struck up a good relationship with that. I actually met him on one of the Glasgow runs. It was just after my treatment.
Really, yeah.
And I'm busy looking for my family, and the first person that I meet is Jeff White.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you doing here? You know, I've got the bald head, and he was like, I wanted to raise money for Friends of the Beatson, it was at the time. Because that was a great place for me to go when I was going through my treatment. He said, I just wanted to raise a bit of money and give a bit back.
Yeah.
And that kind of when it kick-started my running and a lot of charity work and running work, and kind of rambling on a wee bit here, but it's good to reminisce.
Yep.
It's good to go back. I mean, a lot of it is a bit hazy, but some of the stuff is clear as the day it happened. Yeah.
I find that as well. I don't know if you've experienced this, like since, and but I find that after chemo, I've always had kind of like, I always called it chemo brain, right? And I always feel like I was a bit kind of foggy and a bit, but there's a bit of that. Like I had like a pretty decent memory and stuff like that, but I think there is a bit of, I don't know if it's because I'm, you know, pushing 40 and it's you drop me anyway, but
no, we'll blame it. We'll blame it on the chemo. That has nothing to do with age.
That kind of fogginess, like I don't know if you experienced anything like that or any kind of the side effects that kind of came along with that.
With chemo, with the hair falling out, my head, it became like a big rash. Like, I don't know, it was just an allergic reaction. I didn't really experience any other chemo effects, like bleeding gums or anything like that, but with the hair, and quite a vain person, you know, I always like to look smart and hair on point, so when that happened, I felt a little bit, you know, kind of went within myself,
right.
You know, so I was wearing hats and really struggled in that side of it, and then once I got into it, I kind of embraced it a little bit. Lost my taste a little bit. I love my food, love my grub.
Yeah.
But that was the side effects of the chemo that I found. I remember coming out of the hospital after the second bout, and I just wanted a plate of chips with some salt on it. You know, I don't know whether that was the hospital food or it was the chemo, but I just fancied just something really, really tasty. But I still, even once I got home and got all of that, I lost my taste a little bit. But I think I blame the fogginess on the chemo, but I think that was just old age, like yourself. I'm not saying that you're old, right?
I feel it, mate. I feel it, honestly. But it's interesting as well, like, see when you're talking about like having to tell your parents, I think that's something that I don't know if I've ever really kind of touched on in this, but it is a difficult thing to get into your head. It's like, I remember like going down to tell my mum and dad as well, and it's
how did you do it?
I think I'd went and got my scan, and was basically told there and then that it was likely testicular cancer, and I luckily live like 5 minutes away from my parents. You know, it's like I essentially stayed in the street that I kind of first grew up in, type of thing. Like, it's almost
Nice.
like that. But I did just take the kind of, I just need to go down and say it. And I remember going into the house, mum and dad were there, and it was all kind of cheery, and I like yourself, it's like your parents know when there's something not right with you. It's like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And I was like, listen, looks like I've got testicular cancer. And then it's this drop, like, okay. And again,
Bombshell.
my folks are a bit like yours, you know, they're kind of like pragmatic and like, okay, right, so what's the course of action for it and all that type of thing. And yeah, it was difficult though, and you know, I'm quite an emotional person, so I was like ugly crying throughout it.
Oh, yeah,
you know, like
snotters and everything flying everywhere. Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah.
And being a parent now, I can't imagine what that must feel like when your child comes up to you and tells you that they've got cancer. And I think as well, it's like, so when I was born, I had a twin brother, and my twin brother died when he was about 2-3 days old. So having grown up with that kind of tragedy around that as well, and then having cancer, is the you know, the other twin was quite it was a ropey ride for me, like, Can't even imagine, mate.
so I to be able to kind of have that, and I remember I'm not a religious person at all, but I remember when I was going through treatment, I ended up with sepsis during my treatment, and
I had a good time with it, mate.
I swear to God, I remember talking to Jeff and him going, I'm really sorry you're going through this. I'm like, Jeff, it's not your fault. You know, it's just my body.
He must have said that to every person that he was with. He was so understanding, and that must have been brutal for you to go through that on top of the cancer.
Oh, I think it was just more brutal mentally, do you know? And I remember, like, I think one of the side effects of sepsis is that the person who has it has a feeling that they're going to die. So it's like so anybody that's had like a really bad sepsis will go, I'm dying. And I kind of had that feeling. And I remember, like, my dad had to take me through to the Beatson when I was just being sick everywhere. And I remember, like, looking up at him going, Dad, do you believe in heaven? And I was like, oh my God, like, what is going on? Like, but in my brain, that's all I could think of, because I thought, I'm going to die. You know, I thought this was my time. Yeah, and it was and I think that feeling of being a kid and looking at your parents, you know, it's so I understand, like, how tough
even
it is
though
to say.
30-year-old, you know, it's still I'm their wee boy, and I still my mum and dad, and I can still remember walking up that path and walking through that door and having to tell them, and then telling my big sister as well. Yeah, you know, like my sister now, typical brother sister. You know, you have a laugh and a joke. So when I went to see her, you're just having that laugh and a joke, and like you've got this inside you. You know you have to tell. And then all of a sudden, you're like, there's no easy way of saying this. No. And it's like, no, shut up, you're at it. You know, like, that's your worst joke yet, you know. And then it was like, no, this is actually happening. And I can still remember that embrace, that hug, we were just both crying together. And then she was like, my mum and dad, right, what are we doing?
Yeah.
How are we going to get through this as a family?
Yeah.
You know, like, and then all of a sudden your friends, they all gathered round, and then like the Shinty team, once they caught wind of it, there was no hiding places then. You know, it was like,
yeah.
Why didn't I tell anybody sooner? You know, because all of a sudden all the boys, they were coming out with the usual, oh, all right, Lance Armstrong, and you know, Winston out of still game because I had the limp because of and what was the other one? The one ball of Wimbledon.
Yep.
You know all the classics. You know, but it was great. I needed that.
Yeah.
You know, there was no whispering, you know, in the changing rooms or hiding behind anybody. They all just came out and just spade after spade and told me how it was, and I needed that. That was good therapy for me. And even now, I try and get the jokes in first before the boys do. You get your retaliation in first, and they're still at it, which is good. Yeah, which is great.
I think it's funny as well. Like, you find that Scottish people are so much more likely to joke about these types of things. I think there is a humour within Scotland, and there's also that, but it's not to diminish.
No, far from it.
Yeah, no. But it certainly helps.
Yeah, and it's certainly my way of dealing with it as well, and also kind of just breaking the ice sometimes, just to let people know, oh, if he's having a joke about it, I can maybe get in there and wade in. Yeah, which is good. But it's also serious as well. You know, that it's trying to find that right balance of, okay, we can have a laugh and a joke about it, but please check yourself. You know, please. And if even for the females to tell their partners or their dads or their brothers, you know, like, try and get that message out to people, which you guys are doing a great job of doing. And please keep it up. Oh,
we're trying, and we kind of do that as well. Like, see, when I'm doing talks, I will always try and, you know, make fun of myself to break the ice. Do you know? So it's like, I'll always start off like, you know, I know my name's Paul and I've got one bottle, and it gets and you just feel the room kind of de-hiss a little bit. It's like, right, okay. Like, this isn't going to be this lecture, and I think it helps in that regard as well.
And are you getting good responses from the talks that you go to and the kids out there? Yeah,
definitely. The school, anywhere we've went, really, it's been great. The schools are great. The kids are always dead attentive. And I think to a school, you get the teachers will come up to you afterwards and be like, they've never sat as quiet as this through something or engaged with something. You know, it's usually you're having to tell them to sit down and shut up, you know.
That's good to hear. That's what you want to hear, and reassuring for you, knowing that the message is getting out there. Yeah. It's sinking in for people if they're attentive and listening. Yeah.
And I think because we've got the text alert, so where like you text balls to 60777. So when I put that up at the end of my talk, you know, Richie I'll always phone Richie after I've done a talk or done a podcast. I'll phone him right away, and he is always kind of like, oh, but you've had a few sign-ups, you know, and much to his dismay, because he's got to come up with something clever to put out there now, you know. So
that's good.
Yeah. So it's great when you can break the ice and have that generation normalise checking yourself, because I think it's easier going into schools because I know the kids are going to be all right. See, when you go into like, and this isn't a criticism, like, it's harder going into businesses where you've got guys our age who are long in the tooth, maybe are kind of getting told, no, go along to this. So when you're able to break down the barriers with those guys who don't talk about balls, don't have these conversations, when we're able to go in and go, I'm Paul, I've only got one ball, and they go, all right, okay, this guy's okay.
So with all these talks, why is it the older guys are like that?
I just think it's a generational thing. Yeah, I think it's a typical Scottish or British, like, it's that stigma and embarrassment, you know, and that you don't talk about your bits, you know, and I think that's...
And do you think the younger generation are switching? There's a kind of it's coming round.
For sure. I think my laddie's 14. Well, he's going to be 14. And health awareness is something you can see that's quite a big push. So why not have that awareness about these things, especially when you're coming into the age where you need to be in your checks. You know, that 15 to 45 is your kind of main age group. So if we can get that message to these kids who are more health conscious anyway, you know, and if they're able to go, okay, this is just a normal behaviour, it's part of that, something we've been taught, makes it easier.
It's just the norm. I've been working at Strathclyde Uni in the gym for 20 odd years, and I've seen a big switch in, you know, students' health and fitness. Like back in the day when I started, the union had a bigger queue than the gym,
right?
You know, whereas now it's totally flipped. You know, the gym, they're queuing to get in there, and the union isn't as busy. You know, so there is a big emphasis on, you know, health, fitness, you know, how you treat your body. So hopefully people are also checking their body, and they're looking down there and checking their balls, goolies, nuts, whatever they want to call them. And that's only going to be aided by you guys getting into schools and colleges and universities and doing that type of work. Yeah,
and it really helps. And again, like that pattern that you've noticed, like even like we've done a couple of the colleges as well, and you do find that there is that different motivation, you know. And even when you look now, like, you know, young folk aren't drinking as much. You know, you know, smoking's almost gone. I know vaping is a thing, but you know, smoking cigarettes, you barely see anybody out smoking an actual cigarette. And you know, maybe I should be more, but diet aware is the big thing as well.
But I thought I was fit and healthy myself.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, enjoyed a few pints at the weekend, you know, like anybody, but I thought I was a relatively fit guy, and it would never happen to me. You know, like I touched on earlier, I thought it was always somebody else, but no matter how fit and healthy you are, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, I was the same, you know, like I was at my fittest when I got diagnosed, which is completely odd because it's funny. We were looking through pictures last night, and I was like, I think it's my mate Tony had got married in November, and by that kind of February I was diagnosed. I'm going, Christ, look how skinny I was, you know. And it's like, actually, because I was running, I was like, I was actually actively fit, you know. And you do, and it's a funny thing that you don't. I think that's the big thing we're trying to do, is that education about it. Not every lump's going to be cancerous, but for guys like us who have felt something and didn't really know, like, it's going to help being able to talk about it and go, right, okay, it could be this, and this is how you check. And don't be embarrassed to go to the doctors, you know.
I wish I didn't walk out that doctor's surgery, you know, 3 or 4 weeks prior. Just because, I don't know how to say this, but I feel like I let myself down, right, you know, by just walking out, like just walking away from the situation. Maybe the experience I've got now, like, I would never ever have done that, and it's something that I want to make sure that other people don't do. Yeah, you know. But in that time, I think about, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's just something I wouldn't do in any other situations, if that makes any sense. Yeah, but because it's testicles and such, like oh, it's okay, it's fine.
Yeah. See if it was something to do. See if you felt like dodgy chest pain, or you were having constant headaches, you wouldn't be going, oh, this is too busy, I'm out of here. You know?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you put it better than I could. But you're right, because it was testicles. I'm like, I'll if I don't talk out loud, if I don't tell anybody, then it's not real. Yeah. You know, so if I keep it to myself and I'll just avoid this situation, then then it's not happening.
Yeah.
Which is, when you say it out loud, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
You know, it's your typical ostrich burying your head in the sand. But that was my way of dealing with it at the time. Like, my flatmate at the time is huge on her health and well-being and fitness, and I couldn't even bring myself to tell her.
Oh, really?
You know,
Right,
so luckily she's a hairdresser as well, so she sorted me out as soon as the hair started falling out. So it was kind of like straight off. But it's funny what it does to you.
Yeah. It's looking back on it, can you remember any kind of associated symptoms with testicular cancer before you took that hit with the Shinty ball? Or was it purely because the Shinty ball hit you, it led you to
sheer coincidence?
Right.
Yeah, like I would never ever check before.
Yeah.
I didn't even. It wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
Didn't even question it. It was just sheer coincidence. I think it was probably already there. It was already dull and aching, but I probably just didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
And then it was quite convenient that the Shinty ball hit it. So then I'm thinking, oh, that's why it's sore, because I've taken a whack to the nuts and it'll disappear as soon as, you know, the swelling goes down, and that'll be it. Yeah. So that was my way of my bizarre logic of thinking that it'll go away,
right.
and it would be fine. I'd never had any education on testicular cancer. I've never ever checked. You know, I even any conversations I've had with any of the other guys, it was much the same. Yeah.
I think when you look at, you know, I think most of the guys that we've had on this, and the guys, and all of them are the part of the kind of the Cahonas community as such, as well as, like, we're all about that kind of 40s age range, you know what I mean? We're all, you know, so we have all had that same experience of no education on it. And so it is interesting when you hear to a man that most people either kind of didn't quite know and put off going. I'd done the same. I'd felt a bit of pain, and, you know, found the Cahonas thing, because I was like, this isn't right. And I oddly though went to testicular cancer first, because I was like, I don't really know what else this could be. You know, I was like, it was a massive paranoid leap for me.
And what year was this, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm just trying to think when did that actually start? Because 2010, I don't think it would have been out there, am I correct?
Richie started it in 2009, so it was just building.
Just literally just starting then,
yeah. So. I was diagnosed in the February 2015.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was a lot more accessible, because I think at the time I'd kind of came across Cahonas, it was I'll excuse the pun, but it was I think they had already had big, like Rich had already done big campaigns with the Check Your Baubles and the Loosen Up auction. I think there'd been a couple of the balls as well, like the charity balls. So it was getting quite established at that point. So that's why I was able to find it as easy, you know. And
for you, that was a great help. That allowed you. Did that allow you to contact somebody? Did it allow you to talk to anybody else?
Yeah, well, it certainly, you know, it allowed me to go to look at, because I think it was like you look at the Cahonas Facebook and then look at all the kind of information they were putting out there, and then using the self-check guide, and I think it put it into my head to do it. So I did get a GP appointment, but I put it off. I was like, maybe it isn't that. Like, you're being paranoid. Like, it's not that. Like, you just take a couple of ibuprofen, a couple of paracetamol, and then move on from it. And then I got the flu, and the pain just got worse, because I was, you know, all your glands are all swollen anyway. Yep. So, like, I honestly, it was like somebody was using my nuts as a paper towel dispenser every time I was running down the stairs.
How long was that happening for?
I think it was at the end of the November, December of the 2014. So it was that kind of coming up to that Christmas period where I felt that, you know, I was starting to feel a looking back on it, probably was feeling a little bit of pain, you know. And this is an odd story, and this just shows you how close me and my friends are. So for that, my mate Tony's stag do, we went out to Krakow, right?
Oh, nice.
So we're all sitting in the balcony of this flat we'd been out, all pretty drunk. I think we're playing cards at this point. And one of my mates goes to me, like as we're all, you know, sometimes you just separate off into different kind of conversations. Yep. And because I'd worked with NHS, but even though like, it was mental health, so it was only really if you hear up I could maybe tell you about. And even then, you know, I wasn't that great. But he goes, I've had a kind of bit of bother like down below, like, and you know about that? And I didn't. I was like, well, the only thing I knew about was like cysts and stuff like that. Again, and it wasn't even about testicular cancer. And I think that showed my naivety and all that as well. It's like, do you know how to check? I was like, kind of I do. It's like, but I don't really know. And then he goes, like, hey, would you ever like feel mine just to tell me if you think that's normal? And I went, aye, no. So there's me and my mates. I've got my hand, my pal's boss. And I'm going, mate, I don't know. I says, it feels like there is a lump there. But yeah, like I don't know. And then so when I got diagnosed with testicular cancer, I was like, mate, I John Coffey'd your cancer into me. That's exactly what's happened.
That's a brilliant story. What goes on in Krakow stays in Krakow.
Exactly, yeah. But the annoying thing was, like years later, I can remember, like, because obviously it was like so quick, and it was years later. I was like, "Did you ever go and get checked out by the?" And he went, "No." And it wasn't. I was like, "Mate,
didn't need to."
I was like, "Come on!"
It for him.
I took that for him.
But for him to be able to chat openly about that,
yeah.
Pardon the pun again, takes balls.
Yeah.
You know, like I take my hat off to anybody that does that, because it's something that I couldn't do.
Touch these balls, I think.
Brilliant.
But that's how kind of close me and my mates were in terms of, and again, like they were so amazing going through it. And you know, he'll love this because I've mentioned his name so many times in this one. Like Tony was there when, so I'd got my operation and he came up to see me. And again, it was like, well, I knew it was testicular cancer because the scans have pretty much said that, but you didn't know as such. So when I got my operation, they'd done the biopsy, because the surgeon in that came in and told. So my mum and dad were there. I think my sister and my brother were there, and then poor Tony's like in the middle of this family event of talking about cancer, and he's like, I only came to see if my pal was all right. So yeah.
Aye, you need all those guys around you, don't you? You need that support network. They're invaluable. Like I couldn't have done it without the support of friends and family around. Even now, you know, like still going up to the follow-up appointments and such. Like I feel a little bit bad because I'm a bit laid back and a bit chilled out, but it's my mum and dad and all that on the phone. They're like, "How do you get on today? How did you do?" And I was like, "Aye, fine. You know, I just got my chest X-ray and I got my blood samples and everything. Was everything okay? Everything all right?"
Yeah.
Aye. I was like, what I find is if no news is good news.
Yeah.
You know, and if there was anything, I would let you know. But you kind of forget that they're getting on with their lives and worrying about what's going on, whereas for me, I'm dealing with it on a daily basis, and I know what's going on, and I should be a wee bit more open with them and let them know what's happening, what's going on, because they're worrying at the other end of the phone. Yeah,
and being so, like, I mean, it's not a massive distance, but being that far away for you, it probably doesn't help them much either.
No, but they were always there. Yeah, you know, they're always there whenever any appointments, and if they ever need anything, they're always there.
So see, you know, how you're saying that, like, because we talk about that in the talks as well, the undescended testicles being a risk factor that isn't a preventative one. It's a genetic risk factor. I haven't had that, and have you spoke to anybody since about that going forward? Or
that happened, like, I remember being in hospital when that happened, and it was my mum and dad. They talked talked to me about it latterly and telling me, oh, when you were a young boy, you were in hospital and you had an operation on your testicles, and but never ever were we warned that it might lead to testicular cancer. And I'm probably glad we weren't warned, because see, if it did, I'd probably be on Dr. Google 24/7 for years looking as that could be it, that could be it. I would have been a worried mess.
Yeah.
So nobody ever talked to me about it, or in depth, or even latterly after the operation and such, like, because I don't know, it just never came about. And one of the also the issues is fertility with undescended testicles.
Right.
So that might have made me even more worried that I might not be able to ever start a family as well. So quite glad that it was from an era where it wasn't talked about as much, because I might have worried about it a bit more than I should have. Maybe been a bit naive probably helped me in that respect when it came to, you know, the fertility side of it and the undescended testicle. You know, that probably was to my advantage.
Yeah. And was it the testicle that hadn't descended? Was that the one that became cancerous, or do you not really?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
I just wondered,
that would be interesting to at that time there was a lot going on. Maybe now I would go back and ask that question. I'm not too sure.
Because it's something that we bring up in the talks again, that being that, you know, your genetic risk factors, if you've had somebody in the family that's had it, you know, and again, fertility issues, you know, can lead to that as well. So it's funny how it all kind of just tied together. You know?
Yeah, no, and at that time I think out of everything, that's what worried me the most, was the fact that I might not have a family.
Yeah.
You know, so that day when I dropped off that sample, like I said, like, that was the best thing I ever done, because fortunate enough now got a beautiful, healthy wee 4-year-old boy that just look at every day and think it's a wee miracle.
Yeah. The fact that you've been given that chance through all that as well is quite an amazing thing.
That chance, because my partner at the time, we tried to do it naturally, and
which is always the most fun.
Which is the fun way. Yeah, I'd talked to. It was the one time Jeff White wasn't there, and I talked to a different doctor at the time, and I said, "Listen, I'm looking to start a family. Can I still do that naturally?" "Yes, no problem at all." Yeah. So those words from him were great.
Yeah.
We tried, but for a long time it didn't work. So then I went back to Dr. Jeff White like the year later and asked him again, "This is not working." He's like, "Have you had another sample since the chemo?" And I'm like, "No." He said, "Did the last doctor not tell you to go and get a sample?" I was like, "No." He said, "Just batter at it." So he's the doctor. I'm thinking he's the man in the know. And he's like, right, and he's writing notes and frantically typing, and he's like, "Take this and go to the fertility clinic."
Yep.
And that's when the journey started.
Right.
They put us at the top of the list. They're like, "So sorry that this happened to you. This should never ever have happened." So that was the start of our IVF journey, and it's a bumpy road. There's some dark places in there. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And credit to my partner at the time. She just took it all in her stride. You know, like a pincushion and eggs retrieval and all sorts. It's an emotional roller coaster. And I always feel like I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but we were fortunate enough. We knew what our issue was. We knew it was me.
Yeah.
there's some people in that IVF clinic that were trying, and they don't know the reason, and it's another subject that we don't talk about. It's something that we didn't talk about either. Like, just didn't feel it was right to talk about it, because what happens if it doesn't work? What the added pressure, there's. But then, see, once you did start talking about it, the amount of people that were going through similar issues, or the amount of people that have maybe lost a child, or or struggles, it's like the testicular cancer. It opens up, and the more people you talk to about it, the easier it becomes talking about it.
I think as well, like, it's another one of those subjects, like, be it female or male fertility. Like, see, when you're at school, it was always like, if you're going to have sex, you're going to get pregnant. Yeah. It's not quite as easy as that, and especially like people who are healthy and normal, like normal couples who have got no issues. It's not quite as easy as that. And you look at couples who, like for us, for example, know that the issue is because of testicular cancer and chemo and things like that. That adds in that little bit of kind of pressure as well. And it's like we don't really talk about male fertility.
No,
in
we
that
don't.
regard either.
And going back to school, the girls always had their own education about periods and pregnancy and such, and the guys are kind of what we talk about. Yeah. Like, I can remember being in the classroom with the guys and not really having anything male related. And at the time, we don't really think much of it, but now that's changing. Yeah.
I mean, you were told about STDs and use a condom. That was it. That was essentially it.
But that was more of a laugh, wasn't it? Like, you'd talk about condoms, and it didn't really sink in.
And I think that's the thing as well, like, those fertility issues and the trying has its own weight to bear mentally. Todd, and Todd kind of touched on this briefly as well. It was he felt like that, he wasn't involved as such, because all he had to do was give a sample, and then his partner was the one that was actually sacrificing a lot of that kind of physical stuff.
100%. Like, I can totally get where he's coming from, and you kind of also feel responsible that your partner's had to go through all of this. Yeah. Because of what's happened in the past, and you're thinking, what happens if I was a fit and healthy guy and we could have done this normally, and we wouldn't have to go down this journey of egg retrieval and being like a pincushion. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? The speed bumps along the way just are so difficult to take, and like, it's hard. It's difficult. Yeah.
And it's that way as well. You talk about the kind of going at the dark places, and even when you have like I kind of say to you again before we kind of started talking, we were able to kind of conceive naturally just by the skin of our teeth, which was amazing, but the dark places that you can go to even through a natural pregnancy, but when it's something that you're having to invest time and 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 again, those physical endurances that the female has to go through, it's equally as mentally challenging for the guy as well.
Definitely, it's so mechanical. It's like you need to come in this date for blood's taken out at this date and eggs to be removed at this date. It's all laid out for you as a part of a plan. And nothing was natural with it, but it's the most natural thing. Going. But also, the science behind it all is just amazing. Like, without it, then we wouldn't have a beautiful wee boy. Like, that's basically the end goal. And without me being in that room that day, then that wouldn't have been made possible.
Yeah, to have that decision as well. And it must have been hard though as well. Like we've spoke about this a couple of times, but you know, being a young man, not with anybody at the time, and then having to go through all those forms.
Yes. Oh, it's bizarre because you never, it's that unknown that gets you. You know, it's that fear of the unknown, of not knowing, especially for somebody who likes to have everything laid out in place, knowing what's happening. That was you're right, that was the toughest thing. But now looking back, that kind of makes you stronger, you know, and it makes you appreciate that little human being even more. Yeah.
And I think that's like when we had done the testimonials, and when Chaz had recorded mine, he had like the end of my one, you see like me lifting the wee one, you know, and it's when we were at the ball and that got played, you know, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, you know.
So good.
And I think but it does highlight that, because I think that's the thing as well. It's like we can talk about testicular cancer and the check-in and the education behind that, but it's the rest of it that comes with it. It's the mental health challenges, it's the fertility challenges, and one of the big things that I always try, and it's only if people ever comfortable talking about it, but because we had our own fertility issues as such, to talk about male fertility within testicular cancer is something that, again, needs to be expanded upon, I think.
100%. I would kind of deliberate on whether to talk about it or not, but because it is so personal. But also, if it helps one person out there to know that they're not alone in going through what they're going through, then I'll know that what we've talked about today is, you know, we've done our job. Yeah. You know, that I wish that there was something like this for me when I was going through my treatment, going through IVF, just to know that there is other people out there going through similar, and to be able to maybe reach out to them or have a chat, then I would have done that. Yeah,
because you can imagine, you know, you then looking at you now, you know, and being able to see what what it became for you. You know, to have that, it's, you know, it's potentially going to be okay.
Yes.
You know, and again, my wife and I had the same discussions, you know, because the community of TC survivors, you know, and I think as Cahonas, I think we are like blowing our own trumpet, doing a really good job of bringing guys together and it being more of a community now, and getting guys to realise it's all right to have been through this and talk to other guys about it. But for us, you know, we always said, you know, if we could have seen our story when we were at the start of it, you'd kind of go,
phew, that's okay. It's going to be all right. You know, you're like, your mum and dad would always hug you and tell you it's going to be okay. But like, how do they know?
Yeah, and then sitting in the recesses, there's that dark monkey going,
no, you're in for a rocky ride here.
And I think the only thing that we had was, did you ever meet Nicola, one of the CNSs?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, she was amazing. And I remember when we were talking about, you know, because we had been trying beforehand, and she'd said, you know, we've just had a guy, and it was like, I think it was 2 years before they could. And, you know, it's like, and that kind of stuck with us a little bit. But when you're going through that period of trying and it's not happening, and I think my wife was like I think she said to me, it was like almost 2 years to the day Nicola telling us that we fell pregnant. So it was like, if we had, you know, you have all this invested hope, but sometimes you don't listen to what's been said to you as well. And it's like,
and it's like, for me, you're kind of wanting it done now.
Yeah.
And looking at 14 years ahead, that's like, wow, that's mind blowing. Yeah. You know, whereas somebody gave me good advice, is like, just look at the step in front of you. Yeah. You know, like don't start looking too far down the road. Just let's deal with what we've got just now. let's just take it baby steps at a time, and then that'll come good.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to be able to have a wee crystal ball and just see what was going on.
But it's such a minefield as well, and I just think that as long as we can keep having conversations like this, you know, and I'm terrible, I keep saying you know, but it's like, but when we can keep having conversations like this, and the way that, you know, hopefully the SEO and things like that work, that people come across this, guys who, you know, in 10, 15 years time will look back and be able to see us talking about this,
Yes.
or me and Todd talking about issues, that it will almost give us what we needed. I think that's the hope anyway.
No,
you know?
without a doubt. And who knows what it'll be like in 14, 15 years time as well, the technology, and, you know, the message, what that'll be like, you know, in that time. So no, keep on doing what you're doing.
If there's any kind of advice that you would either give one to your younger self, or any guy that's kind of going through their testicular cancer journey at the minute, what advice would you give somebody?
Don't take the biggest prosthetic ball going.
Sorry.
They offered me it, and there was two, and I was like, do I need to take it? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, I'm just going to take it for the crack. Because at the time I didn't have a partner. You know, I thought it might look a little bit funny. In the changing rooms, might have been a bit lopsided. But I took that. It's honestly massive. Like, I go through pants weekly because it's so the amount of chafing that's going on the go. So that would be my advice. No, but on a serious note, best advice is talk about it. Get blethering. If there is people who've been through it, reach out to them, because as soon as you start talking to people about it, stories are very similar. You know, the stuff that goes on in between might be different, but the end game is all the same. And if you take one wee nugget of information from it, it helps you, then that's good for me. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story as well. It's like, it's good, even though like we've kind of been in each other's spheres for a long period of time now. It's to actually sit down and talk to you and hear your story is good for me as well.
And I'm getting to hear some of your stories as well, which is great. And thank you for having me. It's good to talk about it and get it out there and get it off the chest, and hopefully somebody takes something from it. Yeah,
like you said earlier on, you know, if somebody watching this comes away and we've helped one person, we've done a great job today, you know. So, no, thanks.
I appreciate that, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.